Hi, welcome. It's Joanne Hull, and I've got a fantastic guest with me today. Her name is Zsa Zsa Daniel, and I hope you'll enjoy it. If you have any questions during the chat, please do pop them below, and we'll be able to ask Zsa Zsa herself. So let's bring her in now. Hopefully you're all watching, and welcome on here. There you go. Let's bring her on. Hooray!
Hi, Joanne. Hiya.
All right.
Thanks very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're most welcome. Thank you so much for being a guest on the show. You know, I'm just doing these little broadcasts to get to know people and to share some amazing people out there with the audience. So once the people start coming on, we can get their questions and ask you. But in the meantime, I will ask you some questions as well. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course. Lovely. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Fantastic. So those of you that don't know, Zsa Zsa is multi-talented. I have a list of everything she does, and there's so much. So if you don't mind, would you like to just reel off one by one everything that you're sort of connected with?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, I would like to mention that I do animal communication, and this is how I came to meet you. So many years ago, I went to one of your workshops up in Edinburgh, and then I loved it so much. I think I was just like in tears from just the sort of the excitement and just the love of it all, that I went on and did another course with you. So so that was sort of what kind of got me towards the animal side of things. And so I work with dogs now as well as people. I do coaching. I work in energetics. I've got healing work behind me as well, NLP, canine hypnotherapy, which is part of Canine Flow, which is another part of dog training that I do. I do relaxed dog classes with that as well, and canine behavior training. Have I missed out something?
Keep going.
For both people and dogs. And coaching. Yes, so coaching is what I'm really mainly doing at the moment, but I've been coaching for quite a few years. So many years ago, I was in hospitality. I did that for over 20 years, decided I couldn't do it anymore. It was enough. So I came out of that to pursue a career in writing, which didn't really go to plan. So it's sort of like since then I've been sort of like recreating myself and discovering what I really wanted to do, because I never really went into hospitality going, I want to be in hospitality and that's definitely my path. It just sort of happened, and I was good at it, and yeah, just carried on doing that. But so now it's all about working with people and animals, but especially dogs.
So am I right to say that you've been coaching since way back, since 2009?
That's right. Yep. So that's when I started coaching in London. And at the time I was also running a restaurant, quite a well-known restaurant in Mayfair. Mm-hmm. And of course, having a team is very useful, because you can use them as to coach and practice and stuff like that. And then with different people that I'd learnt on my course with the coaching, you know, we used to practice with each other and sort of get together, and then just started collecting clients since then.
Wow. And so how did you get started? What got you started? And what were back in 2009, what were you actually coaching? What was the whole ethos about what you were doing?
Right. Okay. Now, back in 2009, so I was running a successful restaurant. Well, actually, it was still growing then. It wasn't really very successful back then. The company was successful in Switzerland, but not in the UK. And at the time, I was living in my ideal house. I've always wanted to live in a mansion block. I said, I want to live in a mansion block in St. John's Wood, and I was living there. So I thought, awesome, everything is great, yeah. I had this super boyfriend at the time. Now, I don't want to sound all maudlin, because I really don't mean to bring that space or that energy into this space, but he took his own life. And yeah, this was in 2009. So you don't know this, but I'm not saying this to make anyone feel sad or anything. it was obviously quite hard at the time, but it also, you want to alchemize situations like that, because you can actually really help a lot of people if you can realize that you can't change it. No one has the ability. If somebody's got in their head they're going to do that, they're going to do that, and you cannot stop them. So, but at the time I was very confused. I thought, could I have stopped it? Is it my fault? What can I do? And so I decided I was going to do this coaching course because I wanted to try and understand humans better. That was my logic at the time. Do coaching. I'd done a few little like small weekend coaching classes or courses, and then I decided to go for the big, massive one. Cost a lot of money, a lot of money. So I did that, and it kind of helped me to sort of really understand people and human behavior. And it was also helping with what I was doing with the people that I was working with my clients, like my customers, but also my clients. There was a lot going on at that time, and it just helped me to sort of just develop, really. So I suppose if that hadn't happened, would I have done it? I don't know. Maybe I would have done later on, but that's how it kind of evolved at the time.
So it was a real spiritual healing for yourself and projecting to others and helping others understand themselves as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that if you sort of feel like you really want to help other people, you're going to get situations that's going to make that happen. So if you're feeling like, oh, what can I do to help others? That's what my mission should be. Then upstairs is going to go, right, I'm going to throw you a few things. They might not be great, but if you can overcome them and if you can alchemize them and bring light to them, maybe you can help other people that way and inspire them that way.
Yeah, and do you find that people are receptive to what you have to say? Do you know, when they're in that sort of dark place? Because people so often get in that dark place, and one of the things that they say to me is they can't reach out because they don't want to talk. And the advice is you must talk about your problems. Yet when you're in that dark place, you know, the last thing you want to do is actually talk to someone. You want to hide yourself away and put the cover over your head.
I agree with you. I think that when you're in that very dark space, you don't want anybody coming up to you and going, I'm going to make it all right, I'm going to help you. You can't. You just have to just sit there with them and let them just stay in that space until they're ready. Really, you can't help anyone. They have to decide when it's time, that if they want our help or not. I mean, it would be lovely to say we can help everyone. And as you know, it's like you can't always heal others either. It's like if they want healing, they'll ask for it. And if they don't, that's their choice. So you do have to be respectful and say, okay, if you want your space, I'll give you the space until you're ready. And there is a time.
Yeah, and I don't know whether you agree, but by working with the animals, we sometimes can get through to people in a slightly different way. So rather than going direct through to the person, we can actually help. I mean, I know with my work, we can actually help the people via their animals. So by going in to talk with their animals, we then get to the bottom of what's the issue with the people. And so often it's the animals' issues are the people's issues. Absolutely. So that can be picked up and they're more receptive, and it's a little bit more gentle as a therapy, I guess. I don't know whether you agree with that.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. Yeah. I think sometimes the animals contact us and the people go, oh, I've come to you because, and you go, yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. And, you know, those of you that study animal communication will know that animals mirror our behavior or emotions. So sometimes when our animals are acting up what we see as acting up, it's normally a cause of they're trying to get attention for your own issues, and you may not see it, but when we as communicators will look in on that animal, we can very clearly see the issues are coming from the carer of the animal, and it's very helpful to be able to help them that way. And by working with the animals, like as I said, you know, you can get through and maybe help someone who's in need that won't or would never reach out to another person for themselves, but they will and are willing to reach out for someone you know, who can help their animal, because the last thing they want, and sometimes the animals are the only things that they trust, because trust is a big issue, which is one of the reasons why they won't reach out to other humans. They don't trust humans, they trust animals, which is understandable.
Absolutely. And I think there's also often a great deal of trauma that has happened at some point in their lives, or even inherited that remains there, present in their energetic field. And so it does take time to help them to break those things down so that they can, you know, get rid of them. And of course, animals are really the only ones that can really help them to do that. And this is why I love the work, because, you know, when people are saying, oh, my dog is doing this, or it's like, well, okay, but I know that there's something deeper going on here. And let's, you know, I mean, obviously everybody has to do it in their own time, because sometimes they have to learn these things over years. It can't always just be automatically like, here you go, here's the prize, because we always think that's the prize. But sometimes it takes time to unravel these things so you can really understand it deeply and also heal it.
Yeah.
So,
so that leads us into animal communication and your experience with that. How did that start, and where has it led you today?
So I started communicating with animals from an early age, but I didn't really know that because I was told they were imaginary friends. My first best friends in this world weren't human. I had Smudge, Charlotte, and then I had two others, but I don't remember their names anymore. Charlotte was a little girl, although she wasn't in physical body, and Smudge was a cow. And my mother said that I was very weird because, you know, I used to insist that, you know, Smudge and Charlotte had to come in, and so I was my world kind of revolved around these little imaginary friends until I got a cat. I got my cat when I was, I think, 3 or 4, I think, and he became my then best friend, and my other little friends sort of disappeared, or they sort of retreated a little bit. And then I remember, like, certain things in life, certain things happening around about 12 years old. And this ties in with my dog that I have today. I was out sailing with my grandfather, and at the time he had this Cairn Terrier. It was a little bit rotund, so its feet were very, very thin. And as you know, like, little terriers don't have, you know, big feet for swimming. They're not designed that way. And this poor little dog went overboard, and I was freaking out because the dog's overboard. And back in the day, they had these very little tiny collars that were like leather, like little round. Do you remember those little round collars? And my grandfather goes, really dead calm. I mean, he was probably freaking out as well. He's going, right, just go up forward and just hook him out. And I was so scared, so scared. Anyway, I managed to get this dog out of the Solent with great big waves and winds and everything else. And I was so grateful that I'd got him out. But this dog used to be a nightmare for me. It was a really, really difficult dog. He used to run off. I'd be running after him all my holidays, days chasing this dog. Real hard work. After that, he just stayed by me and was like a little diamond, was suddenly just a changed dog overnight. And the reason why I say, oh, this dog has got relation to my dog now is because there is something, whether you want to say reincarnation, whether it's the same stream of energy, there is something that connects the two. There's something there. I feel like he's come back again to help me, if that makes sense. Yeah, so he's come back in a different body, but I didn't know that straight away. It took me a long time to work that out. And so, and then to sort of like forward some years, quite a few years, because there was times when I became quite unconscious. When I say unconscious, you know, it's just in the sort of day-to-day work, doing this, doing that, and I wasn't really thinking much about sort of speaking to animals. I mean, I still loved animals, was doing things like working with cats and for charities and things like this, but it was a different kind of thing. I wasn't sort of like actively talking to animals. And then forward more years, and I was nursing my mother. And after she died, I thought, God, you know, I'm not sure coaching is just enough for me. There's something else I need to do. And that's when I contacted you, and it was like everything suddenly started coming back. It was like the door had been opened and everything was falling out because it hadn't been tidied away properly. It was like, oh God, we've been waiting for you to come in here and sort this stuff out. You know, this is what you're supposed to be doing as well, as working with the animals as well. So it's kind of been like a big circle coming back.
And that was at the Scottish workshop. You flew up. Did you fly up to Scotland to see me?
I drove up to Scotland. I drove all the way there. It was my first long drive.
Yeah, I remember the workshop well. We had a few really good people on that day, and you stood out as one of, you know, you did so well, and I was so proud of you. And I really wanted to see you fly with what you'd learnt. And obviously you've gone off, and I'm like a proud mummy, you know, it's like gone off to do amazing things. So I'm really, really proud of you. And then the fact we've stayed in touch, and, you know, I'm always there to support your work, and it's great to have you on today. So hit the like button, everybody. If you haven't already, hit the like button. Zaza's here. So tell me then, so after the communication that you've been doing and you've been working with the animals, what about canine flow? Where does that fit in?
So around about the same time that I was doing the animal communication with you, I was also doing like lots of other courses. I was really like a course junkie at the time. I was reading loads of books. I was super studying. I was doing canine behavior training, dog training, and canine flow as well. So canine flow was is a combination of different, I wouldn't say the word is therapy because that's not the right word. It's a type of dog training, but it's using the dog's energy, the person's energy. So we're looking at sort of aspects like diet being an important one, because the diet affects how we are, affects our physiology and everything else. And then we're also looking at, you know, influences in the environment. So, for example, cell phones, those sorts of things, they can really, really make a difference to how an animal feels about themselves. And then we're also looking at dogs as being feeling beings rather than thinking beings. So dogs not going to think, oh, I think I might bite that person. Dogs feeling like, if they're feeling it, it's like if there's some sort of energetic electrical impulse to do so. And that's coming from something that's in the environment or something that's influencing them. So people obviously influence their dogs, the other animals that surround them. So we use canine hypnotherapy, we use meditation, and we use energy work as well. So in canine flow, especially, we use spiral work. And it's very effective because it's so easy to help teach other people how to use it. And that's really good, because when we do relaxed dog classes, which is also part of canine flow, it was all set up. It's founded by a lady called Caroline Griffith. And I was in the year 1 of the canine flow practitioners. So I think she's got 4 years going now. I'm not quite sure, because, you know, time sort of goes and you can't remember. So yeah, it's brilliant. It's really, really effective. It takes a little bit of time to sort of help people to understand it. It's like animal communication. I don't actually always understand it myself. In fact, a lot of it I don't understand. I hold my hands up. I still don't really understand how it all works, but I know it works. I know it works, and it's because we're all connected. You know, we're all connected to source, and when you tap into that, and you just allow yourself to be a strong vessel for love and light, and it's very important, the love part, which is very important for animal communication, is very important for canine flow as well. So we're operating from our heart rather than our mind.
And on that note, you know, you're talking about we're all one, which we are. We're all energy, and everybody and everything is connected in some way, shape or form. You've also studied law of attraction. Now I have as well.
Yay.
Yay, I know. Yay. And it works when you get to grips with it. It works so well. It's a little bit difficult and tricky to start with, but once you get in that flow, that energy flow of love and what you desire, and it could be anything from just plain and simple being happy to, you know, I don't know, bringing in a new house, a new car, material things. But generally, it's about just feeling that energy and that love within you, so that you're able to have peace with yourself. I feel law of attraction. So tell me about your experience with law of attraction, what got you started and how it's worked for you, and if you've had any major things happen through using the techniques of law of attraction.
Yeah, so I think I probably I first was introduced to law of attraction through The Secret. I think a lot of people were, because that video, when it came out, was really big. Nobody had I mean, yes, obviously there are some people that had seen things differently to that, but on law of attraction, same subject, but not called The Secret and packaged, marketed in that manner. But I saw The Secret, I think around about 2007. I think that's when it came out. And I was blown away. I was like, wow, what is this? This is so cool. And I just watched it on loop. I watched it, and then as soon as it finished, I watched it again. As soon as it finished, I watched it again, and I kept on watching it. And every time I watched it, something else.
Something new? You saw something new. And just to stop you on that point, if anybody watches The Secret, it's on DVD. You can probably get it on Amazon or eBay. But you'll find that every time you watch it, and it makes me laugh when you say that, because every time you watch that DVD, you see something new, and you think, well, why didn't I notice that before? Or something clicks that's different. So yeah, sorry to interrupt, but it's right.
Yeah. So every single time something different come up. And the video that I saw was the first edition type of video, and in those videos was Esther Hicks. So you probably would know that, I mean, I'm sure you know the teachings of Abraham. And I was fascinated by her, but she had a very small part to play in that. She didn't really speak much.
No, and I was surprised about that. I thought they would keep her in because, as you say, later on in the DVD, she's not there. They've taken her out. Being such a huge focus on law of attraction and so famous, I would say, you know, most people have heard of Esther Hicks and Jerry Hicks. I'm surprised they didn't keep them in. I don't understand why they didn't, because if you're listening, go on YouTube and type in Esther Hicks. And it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating and well worth seeking her book as well.
The Vortex, Ask and It Is Given. Can't think of any other names off the top of my head, but yeah, she's incredible. But she's been doing that work since the 80s. So she had been doing that work, law of attraction work, since the 80s, before The Secret came to light, before Rhonda Bryan, I think, is the author of The Secret, before she discovered that's what this is. And I know that there was something that happened, and Esther thought, no, this isn't quite in alignment with who I am, what I want. So she was the one, I think, that took herself away from it. I think that's what happened. But for me, she was better able to explain it in the way that was really speaking to me. So I studied a lot of her work, and I find it fascinating. I find it so very beneficial. So when I first started applying myself in 2007, I said, I said small things at the time, but I kind of knew that I wanted to have this really nice job, and I wanted to be living in a mansion flat in St. John's Wood. And I got them, and it was like, wow, I've got a really good job. And I mean, I'm a vegan now, but back then I was a vegetarian. And if you,
you haven't gone vegan, you need to go vegan.
Go vegan. And back then, being in hospitality and you're a vegetarian, you don't want to work in a steakhouse. You don't want to work where there's the smell of meat going on, because it's really not nice. Especially if you're a vegan, you definitely don't want to. But like I said, back then I was a vegetarian, but I was like, please, I really, really, really see myself in a fantastic, really gorgeous restaurant where there are no animals, but obviously I was wording it more in the sense of how I wanted it to be. And then boom, I had the best possible restaurant came up in Mayfair, beautiful restaurant, beautiful people, I was working with Swiss people. It was called Tibbetts. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. Oh, I've said it now. Support them because they really are a fantastic restaurant. They're based in Headland Street in the West End.
Okay.
Just off Mayfair. They do vegan food as well. But wonderful, really, really wonderful. And then I had this beautiful mansion flat. I got this incredible flat right next to St John's Wood, next to Lord's Cricket Ground. I mean, it was perfect. I could walk to work, walk back. It took a bit of time, but yeah, that was my first intro to The Secret and the law of attraction and how it could work for me. And I thought, well, wonderful, cool.
So you after, when you do law of attraction and things actually happen, sometimes you forget to realize that that's what brought it to you, like you were working on that. Yes. So you really do forget. You go, oh great, I've got this, but you forget, actually no, you asked for this. And they always say, yeah, be careful what you ask for. And I really feel they're talking about law of attraction, because when you ask for something, 9 times out of 10, if you're doing it right, it will manifest.
Yeah.
So it's really, really good that way. So that's really good to hear. Now, just going back to the vegan thing, what made you turn from, were you a meat eater as a child, or were you always, so you were a meat eater as a child, then you turned veggie, and then you went vegan. Why do you think, this is a question I like to ask people, why do you think that even though you absolutely loved animals when you were young, you weren't vegan?
I think that I didn't associate them with being animals, because if I did, I wouldn't. I mean, this is something that happened when I was a kid. My mum said they took me on a shoot. They took me on a shoot when I was 4 years old to Scotland, and they were all with their guns and whatnot. And in the distance, I saw some cows, and of course, one of my first friends was a cow, and I thought they were going to shoot the cows. They were shooting, I don't know, some type of bird. I'm not sure what they were shooting. It's not my scene. And I broke free from my mother's arms and I ran out to the front going, don't kill them, don't kill them. Now, at 4 years old, I understood what kill meant. Mm-hmm. Because otherwise, how would I have said it? Don't kill them, don't kill them. And I knew they were out shooting something, but it never occurred to me that they were shooting things to eat them. And that the things that we were eating, it never occurred to me that that's where they came from. And also I think back then, because things were slightly different, if I had said, I don't want to eat this, I think it might not have been so easy, because it was like you get what you're given and you eat what you're given. And so actually it was such a much more brutal way of being, really, because I would never suggest to my dog, you eat that or you're not having anything else. If he was like, no, I don't want to eat that, I go, okay, well, what would you like to eat? Or do you want to have nothing? You tell me. That's how I would do it. That's how I'd expect people to talk to their kids, their friends, their family, not like, well, it's that or nothing else.
Yeah. And from vegetarian to vegan, why the switch?
So, well, like I was saying, I was a vegetarian for quite a few years. I think about 10 or something years before I went vegan. And at the time, I was sitting in my office. So this was again 2007. So this is the same year I found The Secret. Mm. And I was sitting in my office, and it was really so trippy, because I thought, God, I wonder if I could ever be no, actually, sorry, this was when I was, sorry, this was actually when I became vegetarian. So sorry, you asked me, why did I switch to become vegan?
Yeah, from vegetarian.
Yeah, okay. So the reason was that I just couldn't do it anymore. It was like, I felt like I should have done it years earlier, and I couldn't understand why I hadn't. It was so blatantly obvious.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's why I was asking the question, because I as an animal communicator for, well, all my life, but professionally around 15 years, I've had a lot of talks with myself about why didn't I see the connection? And, you know, I was a meat eater up until 2.5 years ago. And I really think that, I mean, obviously overnight I went vegan, but there was a reason for that. And I wonder sometimes what it is that turns that switch for people, because you can't say people don't love their animals. I work with people all day, every day, and myself, meat eaters, absolutely dedicated our lives to animals, yet we still ate meat. And it fascinates me to see why that switch turned and what makes people suddenly wake up. Now, is that to do with the internet? Because we see more, we understand that everything we've been told has been a lie. You know, we get shown cows eating grass and saying, you know, that they produce milk from the grass. No, they don't. You know, look into it. I'm not going to talk about it on here because it's not about that, but it fascinates me, the trigger switch to make somebody turn from a meat eater to vegan or vegetarian to vegan, and, you know, what people's experiences are with that sort of turning point in their life, because it's a massive turning point. And I don't know whether you agree, but you get massive clarity on everything.
Oh God, yeah.
Life changes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's part of waking up. And I'm not saying this because I think I'm better than anyone else at all, because it's all part of the parcel, you know, because you do see things in a different way once you stop eating meat. You're eating all that fear that's been produced as they've been eating it. There is it's a different vibration. Your vibration changes.
Yeah.
And also, and this is a thing that I'm sure that you probably can relate to, that before in the past, I could smell when somebody was afraid.
Absolutely. And especially when you work in communication, because, you know, meat animals know they're meat animals, but we're so programmed to switch off at the point of them going to slaughter. Yeah. It's like, we can go right up to that point, but then, nope, that doesn't, you know, that's not what I deal with. And it's like farmers love a lot of farmers, not all of them, but a lot of them really do genuinely love their animals and look after their cows and look after the sheep. But again, it's like a switch off at that point of going to slaughter. So, and then all of a sudden they're on our plate. And also they're not called a cow or a sheep or whatever. They're called, you know, beef and pork and lamb, and well, lamb's lamb, but do you know what I mean? So and we see it packaged, and it's just not that animal. When we connect the dots and we realize actually what we've just done is killed somebody's baby to eat, it suddenly starts to impact on your life, and you see everything differently, and you start seeing that there's no difference between that on your plate and maybe a human on your plate. I know that's quite extreme, but it really opens your eyes to, they're not human, but they do deserve to live. And if you absolutely love animals, then why are we eating them? You know, I mean, it's a very, very detailed and complex, not story, but complex sort of situation to be in to describe veganism. But I think that it's something that when you start going down that spiritual path and you turn vegan, you actually awaken, like you say, awaken more, and you see things so differently, and it almost takes you to the next level. So leaving that behind, because that's fantastic, what about your experience with NLP? Because again, that sort of goes back to this waking up and you know, sort of programming yourself into new things. I mean, how does that work with what you do?
So I don't really use it too much, the NLP. I think it's very useful to know. It can be very helpful to get somebody because you probably know some about NLP, but you're really mirroring and you're helping to get rapport. So if you're a coach, then you generally will have studied a bit of NLP, but I did a separate course in it because I wanted to understand it on a deeper level. People like McKenna, he uses NLP.
Yeah.
So I use it in the sense that if there's somebody who's really, really down, they're really sort of like this, you can help them just by mirroring their body language, just so that you're building some rapport and just lifting them up slightly, just so that you can get to a point where you can actually have a conversation. It's like getting trust with an animal. It's like if you want to build up trust with an animal, you're not just going to start start chatting away or start touching them up. You have to understand their body language first. That's the first thing you've got to work with.
Yeah.
And understand their calming signals if it's a dog or something, you know, what everything means, not be sat straight on, but at a side, you know. So I do use it, but very minimally. And I think it's useful to know as well when somebody's using it on you. And this is the main reason why I like to know about things, is because I am an empath, and being an empath, you have to be so aware of what's going on around you, because you can easily be swept up and you'll be suddenly doing everything for everyone else and forgetting about doing things for yourself.
Absolutely.
So people might say, oh, can you do this, do that and the other? And you're like, yeah, of course I'll do that.
It's very difficult to know, isn't it?
So I think that for that reason, if somebody's using some NLP on me because they want to try and mold me to do something for them that's going to benefit them, but actually not going to help me with my day, I need to know about that, and I need to be strong and practice mindfulness with that situation. So yeah, NLP is very useful. It's a very good thing for people to learn, to be aware of both sides. There's positives and there's negatives to it, because obviously, you know, you don't ever want to be manipulated by anybody. You want people to empower you and help you and inspire you and motivate you and love you and encourage you. You don't ever want anyone to be using it in a naughty sense, and a lot of salespeople do. So yeah.
Now, I can't even say it. Hypnotherapy. You've also had experience with that as well. Have you trained in hypnotherapy? Yes.
So now I trained in this. I've done a few courses. I've done a few courses in hypnotherapy. And again, this is to sort of understand the human psyche on a deeper level. I was and you probably know Dolores Cannon. Yeah, so I was very interested when I found out about quantum healing hypnosis technique. And I thought, oh, I really want to understand this a bit more. And then I was trying to find a practitioner in the UK, and I couldn't find somebody in the UK that was going to be able to help me to learn that specific type of hypnosis. So I thought, well, I'm going to find another teacher. So I found another teacher, and she was based in London. And then I wanted to do another course. So I did another course on top of that to sort of just get more depth in it. And then, of course, I'd also done the canine hypnotherapy. And so by doing the human hypnotherapy, they helped with understanding what I was doing with the canine hypnotherapy, how the two was slightly different.
Sorry, Zsa, can you explain the canine hypnotherapy and how that works with animals? Because I think the viewers will probably think, I didn't know you could even hypnotize a dog. So how does that actually work?
Well, that's the thing. It's like, so when I first was introduced to canine hypnotherapy with the canine flow course that I was doing, it's like, you know, when you're starting with animal communication, you're like, how does this work? I don't understand it. And of course, you feel like when you understand something more, you're better able to do it. Of course, you know. So I was really into exploring and really trying to understand things. Now, for canine hypnotherapy, the important first aspect that you have to really, really hold deep in your heart is the power of intention. So again, it's like law of attraction, that power of intention. Is that whatever you intend to happen, whatever you see as the outcome is what will be. And this is certainly what happens, because if it was just on the words alone, how could it possibly be that a deaf dog could also change through the effects of hypnotherapy? So it's incredible. It's, again, repetition, but leaving spaces. The spaces are important because that's where the magic happens. And whilst we're saying the words and the choice of words that we're using, we're actually doing something with our own brains, which is changing the field around us. It's very effective. I don't exactly know every detail of how it works. All I know is it really works.
It's very connected to animal communication, because you're using your energy to connect with that other animal, and you know you can change behavior, you can change their whole life really by communicating. And animal hypnotherapy is in some ways a lot, you know, it's similar.
Yeah,
But it's very positive for the animals.
it's very positive. They love it. They fall asleep often. I've had dogs completely change from it. One dog, I think it took 8 sessions, and the barking, because used to be like properly barking all the time, like bark, 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 like that, 8 sessions. I don't know what the quickest turnaround is. I'm not sure about that. I don't think that's the important part. I think the important part is just being consistent. I think that's the thing, is being consistent and having a strong intention. I think a lot of time people go, oh, I don't believe it. You can still get somewhere, even if somebody says, oh, I don't believe it. Well, if you don't believe it, but you still come to me, then you must be open to a certain extent. And also, you don't need to worry about what they believe, because what you believe works, will
Absolutely.
happen. And then if it's not, then it's, you know, you can't necessarily help everybody, because maybe there's something that they need to find out later on their path, that if you were to give them the solutions there and then, that they wouldn't come to. So, you know, you just have to detach from that. But I think it's really, really effective. I've had really good results with it. Really good results. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. And so bringing us up to date-ish, because I just want to jump forward a little bit before going back again. But in 2008, you were the founder of FlourishEnergetics, and tell me about that. And because your website is www.ZsaZsaDaniel.net, and I'll put the link below. But tell me about FlourishEnergetics, because you've got a .com with that one, haven't you?
Yeah, so that one I founded in 2018, so that's last year.
Yeah.
And I have the two websites going at the moment. Next week I'm actually going to business school, so I'm going back to school next week.
More courses.
Because I need to get a little bit more organized with getting my 2 websites together. Like I said, at the moment, the ZsaZsa Daniel, what is it again?
It's www.ZsaZsaDaniel.net.
That's the one.
I'll put the link below, don't worry.
That's my predominantly animal-based website. And then the other one is my FlourishEnergetics website, which has more of the it has the coaching on it, but it also has the coaching with people and dogs. But I want to integrate that. Now, this is the tricky thing, because there isn't anybody really out there saying, I coach people, I coach dogs, because people don't want anybody weird standing in the middle of the path. They want to know, which road are you on? I need to know, are you in the path of the dogs? Are you in the path of they want to have something definite. But I think, well, we can do whatever we want to do if
absolutely. You know. On that point, I wanted to say that, you know, there's many, because we're creative as people, because most empaths are creative naturally, and there's many roads that you go down in order to learn and to really find what makes you tick and what feeds your soul. And, you know, for me, I'm a farmer as well as an animal communicator and working with animals. And I've actually come across the same problem, because I want to somehow integrate the farming side, and I'm stock free, by the way, I'm vegan, the farming side with the communication side, because it all integrates into one thing. So it's very difficult. I know where you're coming from. It's very difficult to show people that actually you are capable of other things. It's not, you're not in this little bubble of this is all you do. And it's about evolving as a person as well. So I wish you luck with that. Now, I want to go back to a slightly emotional time, and I hope you don't mind me bringing this up, but I think the viewers might want to hear this. But in September 2016, you developed breast cancer. Can you tell us a bit more about what happened, how you found out, and what you did?
Yeah, so at the time, I had a lump in my left breast, and it started to change shape, and it got a sort of a hard angle on it. And that's when I thought I should go to the doctor. Just before that, I'd been nursing my mother. She died from cancer. She'd had breast cancer first, but she actually had colorectal cancer. And that's how she died. And so I went to the doctors. It was a doctor that wasn't normally there. She was from London, and she said to me, I think you need to go to the hospital straight away and have that looked at. So within 2 weeks, I think it was within 10 days, I was seeing probably the best consultant I could have possibly have asked for from the hospital. And she said to me, yes, that's looks like it is. We'll do some tests. So I had all the tests done there and then. And then she was going, right, this is what we can do. And I kind of was like, I was in shock. I was so in shock. I'm like, I'm 45 at the moment. Yeah. I'm quite young, you know, how can this happen? Okay, you know, have had a bit of a party in the past, Joanne. I'll hold my hands up.
We all have.
It's a party I used to.
Have you read Pet Psychic?
So anyway, so I kind of was like really, really shocked. But anyway, I didn't really want to do any of the treatments. That's what I didn't want. What I did want was just it off me. That was I just want it gone. Yeah. So she was like, well, you know, I'd really prefer it if you did this and that and the other. I said, no, I can't do any of that. No, I'm quite willful. No, I'm not doing any of that. I just want you to take my breast off. So before that was done, because I had the surgery at the end of October, so a month after I was diagnosed, I started to do lots of meditations, releasing my breast from me, giving thanks for it, for serving me for these many years, so that energetically I was allowing it to be released from my body. Because sometimes even now I might feel like an itch where there's nothing there, you know, and I'd done a lot of clearing work to say it's all right, you know, you are allowed to leave. So anyway, I had this surgery. And there was 2 tumors there. One of them was about 8 centimeters. One of them was 2 centimeters. And I had lymph clearance. So I think it was like half of the lymph that they'd taken out was cancerous on that side. So, anyway, I'd had that all done. It was quite a painful operation. I came out the same day just because I wanted to see my dog. I was like, I want to just go home. And they were like, oh, you can't go home until you swallow that sandwich. I went, oh, I want to go home and see my doggy. So they keep the sandwich down. You can go and see your doggy. And I was like, sandwich is down. Can I go now? So I came out the same day. And at the time I was like, right, I've got to have a plan. And I had joined this group called Cancer You Can in the month that I got diagnosed to the month that at the end of October when I had the surgery. And it's on Facebook. And I think that if anybody is recently diagnosed, it's very good. It's because it covers both sides. Now, obviously, there's a lot of people that are really like, you've got to do the conventional route. And there's other people that go, no, you've got to do the natural route. But hey, this is great because they look at both sides and they're non-judgmental. And I think that's really helpful because, you know, you've got to make the right decision for you. And we're all at different stages. And sometimes that right decision can be to do what they tell you to do. Because if you're not able to change you've got to be really disciplined if you're going to do it the natural way, seriously. So anyway, Cancer You Can Facebook page, very beneficial to anyone that's recently diagnosed with cancer. So I went on that, and then I saw this amazing interview with this lady called Kate Shemirani. And she just blew me away, just was so interesting. She had healed herself using Gerson therapy. She was an ex-nurse. She had gone to the Baja Gerson, the Northern Baja Gerson Center, and she had done a stint there. And then I think she'd done the rest at home. So I went to a seminar that she was giving with Dr. Patrick Vickers, who runs the center over in Northern California. And I was just like, right, amazing. I was in front row, sitting in the front row with pen and paper, writing down all the notes. And I thought, right, I'm doing it.
I guess that gave you a real inspiration to have a go, didn't it? I would imagine. I mean, I can only imagine from a very, very tough emotional time to having some hope. You know, you can master this.
Yeah. So I did that solidly for 5 months. It was really tough. It's a full-time job because
What did you actually have to do? Can you explain what you on the Gerson therapy? What do you actually do?
So you have a certain window that you must eat between. So it's called intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is when you're leaving a certain amount of time in the day where you're not eating at all so that your body can rest and that your cells can excrete old cells and rejuvenate themselves. So that's one of the first aspects. You've got a certain window that you eat in, 8 in the morning till 6 at night, and nothing on the outside of that time. Then you have to get a lot of nutrition into your body, because basically if you have cancer, you are deficient of nutrients and you're toxic. So you need to get the toxins out and you need to get the nutrients in. And the nutrients, you have to drink a juice every hour, 13 juices a day. They must be freshly juiced. Wow. Because once a juice is juiced, if it's sitting there for too long, it loses its properties. So I was juicing, and you have specific juices you have at certain times. Then you also do 5 coffee enemas per day. That also takes time to prepare, and you have your coffee enema for 20 minutes. So you hold the coffee in yourself for 20 minutes at a time. It takes about 20 minutes to make a coffee enema as well, but there are some little cheats that I know how to make it quicker. That I learned of Kate, and then we make Hippocrates soup, which is basically the coffee enemas is to help with the liver. So it opens up your bile ducts and helps you to get rid of toxins. So that's the concept behind them. It's also very good for pain relief. So then we have Hippocrates soup, which is very good for cleansing your kidneys, helping your kidneys. Invented by Hippocrates, and that's it's not got any bits in it, so you have to cook it up with potato, leek, onion, garlic, tomato, I think that's it, and then and so you cook it up slowly, and then you blitz it all up, blend it, and then you strain it through a sieve so that you have just like a consomme, and that's how you drink it, and you drink that twice a day. Then the foods that you have, things like you can't cook things too much, so say there's a whole list of things you can't have, things you can have. So I ate a lot of potatoes, I ate a lot of porridge. You have porridge every morning for breakfast. You have baked potatoes, but they have to be cooked very slowly so that they keep the nutrients inside them. Lots of salads and things. It was, what can I say? It was a lot of work.
Full-time job, isn't it? It's a full-time job. But then I guess if you're facing, if you're really facing death, you'd give anything a go.
Yeah.
I mean, I've looked into Gerson a little bit because just out of interest, and it seems to me that they've had so many successes, but for some reason, it's not out there. The pharmaceutical industry. I don't know whether it's anything to do with that, or the information just isn't out there yet. They are having so much success with it. I don't understand. Yeah. It's been for years as well, and they've got case study after case study after case study. So. I think if somebody wants to speak to Zsa Zsa about it, or they want to do their own research, go and research it, because I've heard amazing things about it as well. And I think when we spoke to Lara the other night, she's also done the Gerson therapy. Yeah. So
hi, Lara.
Yeah, hi, Lara, if you're there. But so I think it's a really important factor if you are able. But it does sound like a full time, and you have to be totally dedicated. But I guess. If you're looking at the choices, it's worth doing, and you've got nothing to lose, have you really?
Yeah, it was really worthwhile doing it. I learned a lot from doing it as well. In fact, I've got a book at hand which I can show people, which might be interesting for them.
Please do.
So this book, can you read that, Joanne?
Yeah, Nutritional Healing.
Yeah.
I haven't got my glasses on, they're on my head.
After the work of Dr. Max Gerson, foreword by Charlotte Gerson. She passed away quite recently, and this is by Catherine Alexander. So this is a brilliant. This is a patient management handbook. It's got loads. I have sheets in here that I used to. I've got my blood tests and things like that in there and stuff, because this teaches you how you can actually read your own blood tests and read your own blood, like your blood work. There's sheets at the back that you can use so that you can write down all your supplements and make a tally of when you did your juices and when you did your coffee. So it's really, really useful. So if anyone does decide to do it, this book is the book you need.
And that would be available on Amazon, eBay, and I guess off the Gerson website.
Probably. Yeah.
So how are you today? We're in 2019. This was 2 years ago, 2016. How are you today?
I feel good. I feel great. I still go to see my consultant. I don't know for how long that happens, that I keep going back and forth to see my consultant. I do get some pain here because, you know, I don't have lymph nodes. Yeah. And so there are certain foods that I realize that if I do have them, that it doesn't make me feel so good. I'm kind of moving towards more like new foods, raw foods. Yeah. So I find that if I have more fruits, then it's less painful. So yeah, I mean, can be quite swollen at times. And I mean, I do things like brushing. So have I got a brush in here? I usually have a brush lying around, but you know, when you sort of brush your skin, so you moving your skin around and stuff, that's really helpful. And rebounding is really very important as well, because with your heart pumps your blood, but you know, your lymph only moves through movement, so you have to move it for you. And if you don't have lymph nodes there, you've got to make sure that you're moving. I do a lot of Tai Chi and Qigong, which is really, really helpful. And I do cold water swimming, which
I know. I'm so shocked. I keep seeing your pictures on Instagram. If you haven't followed ZsaZsa, you need to follow her. I mean, an inspiration to everybody. I can't even put my feet in cold water in a bowl, let alone going in the sea. It is incredible. I watch you and I just think, I hold my hands up to you. You are amazing, like Superwoman.
It's really
crazy, Superwoman.
At first, I used to think, oh, I don't know about the cold water sort of thing, but actually the feeling is so different, because you can't really swim like you would normally be able to swim, because it really is that cold. But there's this different sensation. It's really calming. So I come out and I feel so much better just if I go in for a dunk. So I live on the beach and I just go out my front door in my dry robe, and then I go out. I mean, my neighbor down the road said, "Are you stupid? Are you stupid?" And I was like, "You're a bit of a downer."
But, if it helps you, that's the main thing. So what have you learned from that experience? Because that really is an experience, you know. If anybody else is going through it, what have you learned? What's come out of it?
I think what's come out of it is to be open, to be very open, and not have don't be so sort of like in a narrow point of view that you're not seeing the whole story. Listen to what your consultant has to say. Listen to because they want to help you. They're not there to try and hurt you. And this is where a lot of the natural field can go wrong. They think that there's some sort of like everybody wants to hurt you, and that you should only just stay to go the natural route. But of course they don't. They wouldn't be doctors and in that profession if they didn't want to try and help you. So have an open mind, listen to what they have to say, but be really present. Listen to what your body wants to tell you, and also listen to everybody else. The ones that are saying this diet's really going to help for like Gerson therapy and all of these things, like Dr. Morse. And I know there's a lot of people that are very controversial about that, but you know, if you do great fasting and stuff like that, it's actually really, really good at helping to eliminate toxins from the body. Yeah. So I really think people just to be really, really open to hear all sides. No judgments. Everyone can do their own thing. A lot of love, and be really present so you can hear yourself and decide what you need to do, because we're all different.
Yeah, so, that's fantastic. And on that note of love, I know there's one massive love in your life. I'm sure other people may have noticed this love in your life, and his name is Boo Boo.
My little doggy.
Yeah,
My boyfriend's so jealous.
So tell us about your relationship with Boo Boo, how you met, how he came to be with you, and what he means to you. Because I know he means so much. But
Yeah.
if you want to tell the viewers about him, because he is gorgeous.
Thank you. Yeah, he's an amazing dog. When I first met you, I remember showing you a photograph of him, and I said at the time, you know, I was a very different person back then, but I was like, yeah, I saved him, like this. And you looked at the picture again, and then you looked around at everyone else and sort of like showed, now who else feels like, because like, you know, that actually he saved her, sort of thing. And I was like thinking, God, could that possibly? And of course, that's exactly right. That's exactly what happened. So when I moved, because I moved to Spain, I got out of hospitality. I didn't dislike my job. I had a brilliant job. I really loved the people I worked with. But I got out of hospitality because I wanted to write. I wanted to be a professional writer. It didn't work out exactly. But so I went off to Spain. And the plan was that I was going to spend a couple of years there, write, get published, being really successful and all this. And when I'd got there, within, I don't know, a few months, I met this dog chained up at a pig farm. And I looked at him, and the first time I saw him, our eyes met. And I couldn't, what could I do? What could I do? You know, it's like I've seen it now. There's nothing you can do. Once you go down that path, you can't ever go back. You can't change things. It's like you've already seen it. He was bleeding on his everywhere. Like he was full of leishmaniasis, which is from the parasite of the sandfly.
Yeah.
So I took him to this brilliant vet, Alex Morales. Big shout out to Alex, amazing man. And he was like looking at him going, wow. I thought his ears were going to need to be cut off. They were that bad because they were just open wounds. They were just shocking. Anyway, he helped me. I had to inject him every day with quite a strong drug for 3 weeks, I think it was, twice a day. It's just really thick syrup. He used to be really in pain when I was him. And I was thinking, gosh, I'm not in the right state to have a dog. You know, I've got to try and do this writing. You know, there's so many other things I want to do. I did try and get him rehomed over there. That nobody was having any of it. And at the same time, there he was on this pig farm. He was getting better, and we were starting to go for nice walks. He'd never been walked before, by the way. He was about 4 years old at the time. And at the time, I was with this guy who was mentally unwell, but not in a sort of way that's like, you know, depressed and sad, in a way that's really very, very difficult to deal with. Schizophrenia, very hard work. And this dog was kind of like a refuge. Like I could go and get away and have a nice walk in the countryside and just forget about everything. Anyway, we split up. And at the time I didn't drive. And I said, just promise me you'll get me back to the UK. So he said, okay, I'll get you back. So I got back to the UK. I was thinking, well, what am I going to do? I can't go back to London with him. And now I'm like in this situation, like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So I realized he wasn't ever going to be a pet dog. I couldn't go like back into hospitality with him. So I knew I had to change everything. And so he's kind of helped me to sort of like make my life a chief concern, like do what you want to do. Don't be afraid of how long it's going to take to get there. Don't be afraid. I mean, like he would, they're so present, dogs. They're so like in the moment. And there he was waiting for 4 years on the end of a chain with only like 6 foot of space around him to move about. And it never probably occurred to him, like, you know, all of that time. It's only us that see that as that all that time.
Yeah.
And of course, when you do some work on yourself and you start studying and you don't think about, oh my God, it will take this amount of time, you realize actually that it doesn't really feel like that much. When you look back, you go, God, I'm so glad I did it. So glad I was brave enough just to go, gosh, I'm just going to go for it. So he has really helped me. He has helped me a lot more than I probably helped him. We've had some very tricky times. He wasn't socialized. He'd never been socialized. And of course, when we met, you meet the dog you're meant to have, and you've got the law of attraction working at the same time. So my vibration was very stressed, very anxious, very nervy. I was with this guy who was, you know, like, you never knew what was going to happen. The same thing going on with the dog, you know. So there we are, both exactly the same. Of course, you know, you're going to have a dog that's going to have some issues, deep trauma. So we've helped each other to heal. He's a very different dog today, no problem, but walk him anywhere, fine with all dogs, just absolutely amazing. Very gentle dog, very, very gentle.
And it's so lovely to hear that. He's such a big part of your life. And I think that anybody who has animals, you know, they're such huge parts of our life, and, you know, they're family, and we do owe a lot to them. And so, you know, the more we can do for them, the better, in my book. So that's fantastic. I've absolutely thoroughly enjoyed listening to you, Zsa Zsa, today.
Oh,
how can people find you? So if you're doing workshops and seminars, how can people find you? Is it just through the website? There'll be notices on there?
So I'm on all sorts of different social platforms, because apparently that's the way to be these days. So I have a Twitter, ZsaZsaLovely is on my Twitter account. I have an Instagram account for FlourishEnergetics, which is my business name. I have another one, Zsa Zsa Daniel, which is my home one, where you'll see the swimming pictures. Then I also have a Facebook, Zsa Zsa Daniel, which is my personal one, but, you know, and I also got the FlourishEnergetics, which is my business one. I do answer those, so I do go through those. Then I have two websites, which next week, when I've done this business course, and got a little bit more organized about working out how to get these two accounts together so that it's more professional. Yeah, I will close down the ZsaZsaDaniel.net, and it will all be under FlourishEnergetics. But at the moment, I have the two. And I have got an upcoming workshop on the 28th of April, 10 till 3, Walmer, Parish Hall, Road, and that is on balance.
So in the country is that? Can you just state where in the country?
Southeast Kent.
Southeast Kent, okay.
Yeah.
And what's that workshop on? So
that one is in balance. So it's about basically, at first I did a workshop, when was it, a few months ago, called Raise Your Vibration, and some people didn't really understand what it meant, like, beforehand and stuff. So I was having to really explain it, and I thought, well, I'll just try and change the name so it sounded like a little bit more, you know, a contemporary name, but nothing too sort of like, you know, Ascension and everything. So that's why I changed the name. There's a lot of, basically, this is the other thing for my workshops. I do invite people to bring their dogs if it helps them to open up. So I do a lot of work with women that are trying to release this stuff, you know, like, that they've been told they have to be a certain way, and that, you know, they're cooking for the husband, and they're doing all of these things, but not making their own life chief concern. So female empowerment is something that is a big part of something that I want to help women with. Yeah, any form of empowerment really is good.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So thank you so much for being here today. I've absolutely loved it. I hope the viewers have as well. We'll have to have you back on, and I just want to send you all the love in the world, and keep doing what you're doing. You are making me so proud, and you go off and fly, because you know, you're absolutely fantastic, and I just want to say thank you. So take care, and I will speak to you very soon.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Very welcome.
Big love. I don't know how to get out of this, by the way.
And I'm going to end it there. So if you're still watching, I will do my best to end it there. So click this up. Doesn't want to go.
doggy. Did you know doggy there?
I'm not sure it wants to get rid of us, Zsa Zsa. I'm still on.
I don't. I've got something that says stop camera at the bottom, but I think don't know.
Yeah, if you want to stop the camera, I'm doing my best here. It's just ending now. So thanks ever so much for